to like an infinite budget, or is he saying if you've only got $2,000, buy this and don't buy acoustic? I want to understand this guy.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's opposed to it. He does. If you could have $1 billion to put in your system, and he doesn't think you should have acoustic treatment, and he has none, and he will go on and on and on why acoustic treatment is a waste of time and it's not needed. And then he'll, argue for things that don't make any difference at all. So, but there's nothing you can do about these people, except laugh at them, really.
And I am.
And of course, there are legitimate objections to acoustic treatment. If somebody, especially in the hi-fi world as opposed to recording studios, if you have a studio in your bedroom, it's probably your bedroom, you can do what you want. But if you're married and you have a living room and your stereo's in your living room, a lot of spouses object to the look of panels. A common complaint is, well, I can't make my living room look like a recording studio. And I understand that, and that's legitimate.
I don't understand it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, right. And I don't know if you've seen the picture of my living room. I have 55 panels in my living room. And fortunately, my wife is an audiophile. I met her when I was in 1980 when I was teaching a recording class, and she was one of my students. She bought the very first Sony CD player when it came out, and it was like $900.
Wow.
And, so she appreciates good sound, and she loves it. And, we can play things loud, and it still sounds really clear and full, and it doesn't ever hurt your ears, unless the recording is badly mixed or mastered. So she appreciates all the acoustic treatment, and but everybody doesn't. But that's really a different issue of whether acoustic treatment is worthwhile, per se, and of course it is.
Yeah, I agree. I saw you had an article in Skeptic magazine. Do you know Michael Shermer?
Not personally. I've emailed with him when
Yes.
I proposed the article.
Yes. Because I can kind of tell, usually people that are skeptical about audio tend to be skeptical about a lot of things in life. And
Oh, sure.
things I generally try to avoid on the site most of the time because that really raises hell. But when you get into Michael Shermer stuff. But I was just curious because he's one of my favorite authors. I've read most of his books, I think. So.
Oh yeah, no, he's great, and I am a skeptic about everything.
Good.
In fact, I just dashed off a letter to the editor of Consumer Reports the other day. I actually had a letter. I've been getting that for probably 30 years. That magazine, it's a fabulous magazine, and I had a letter printed, I don't know, about 6 months ago because they were talking about ways to keep your mind sharp when you're old, and like watch Jeopardy on TV, do crossword puzzles. And I have 4 vintage pinball machines, and my wife and I play literally an hour every day. We play all the machines. Unless one game goes really long, we'll only get to 3 of them. And they printed that, and I felt obligated to write another letter because they were reviewing mattresses. And mattresses, I have a mattress I paid $200 for a long time ago, and it's fabulous. It's it's just great. It's a platform bed, and every night I get into bed, my wife and I both go, this is so comfortable. Anyways, they were reviewing mattresses that range in price. I guess the cheap ones now are about $400, and the expensive ones, the memory foam and stuff, are over $2,000. And they mentioned that they showed the satisfaction of, because obviously when they do a survey, they want to know what mattress do you have and how happy are you with it. And a whole lot of people that bought the 2 most expensive ones, well over $1,000, expressed an unusually high satisfaction level. Now, this might be, but I wondered if they accounted for, I guess what you call expectation bias.
Mm-hmm.
The same people that spent $2,000 per channel on converters hate when I come in and say, $100 per channel converter or even less sounds exactly as good, and you can't tell the difference in a blind test. Here's the blind test. Go ahead and tell me. They get really, really, really mad. And so I was just proposed that perhaps this is an issue, and I wondered if they had accounted for that people that spend a lot of money don't want to admit to themselves if they're not, totally over the top happy with it.
I guess there's some. Go ahead.
Is that off topic?
No, mattresses.
But you're talking about skepticism, and to me, all of this is about consumerism. And I should mention that people say, "Oh, Ethan wants to be the James Randi of audio."
What's wrong with that?
I see myself more as a Consumer Reports, because this is really what's important. When somebody comes to a forum, and this is what we see all the time, like I was saying before, I only have $300. What and I have $1,000 to spend. Somebody said I need to get new preamps, and that's not really the best allocation of limited funds. So this is really who I'm on their side, is the people that, I'm a consumerist. I want people to spend their money wisely. I don't care if they buy from me. That's not the point. The point is they have only so much money. I want to get them the most bang for the buck with good advice.
I think I'd rather be James Randi.
Right. Okay. Well, I like him too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge skeptic. And
all right, let's see what else we got here. All right, I got an acoustics question here. And this is another one of my selfish ones, kind of. I've got a control room which is decent sized. It's like, I don't know, 20 by 12. It's okay. It's not huge, but then my live room is significantly smaller, and it's 10 by 15 by 9. And I had it fairly live for a long time, and I was kind of I liked certain aspects and hated others. You know, there's some bad ambience in there. So anyway, I got this idea. I hypothesized that I'm just going to make this damn thing 99% dead. And I had a ton of rock wool, and so I just I spaced it all a foot from each wall. I kind of built this frame, like a shell within the room, I guess you could say. And now that it's 99% dead, I think I'm in love with it. I mean, I'm still in the honeymoon period with it, but I don't miss the bad ambience at all, like those direct reflections that are whatever they are, 8 milliseconds or something like that sometimes. What are your thoughts on dead rooms?
Yeah, well, the smaller the room, the deader it has to be. And I think it's a common misconception. We hear this, especially in the audiophile world, but even with recording people. Oh, you don't want a dead room. That's creepy. It's unnatural, and it's not good. But actually, it is good because the alternative is really lousy-sounding small room ambience. The ambience in a small room sounds small. If
bad.
You have
it sounds bad. I want to add that.
And it sounds bad, and it also sounds hollow and boxy and off mic. It's from the comb filtering, which is also a skewed frequency response due to those delays. And you can add, plugins have come a long way, and you can get the quality, even of a medium quality reverb plugin, is still going to sound a whole lot better than the crappy ambience in a small room. So when you get rid of all of that, and a single reflection, a lot of times if someone makes a room totally dead, I'll say, well, you might want to have a reflective floor or not, or you can, have carpet and have some pieces. Home Depot sells 2x4 pieces of plywood and masonite. You could get like 10 of those or 8 of them and stack them up in the closet, or lay them out on the floor. If you're recording acoustic instruments, a violin or something, and you want a single reflection off the floor. The problem is when you have a reflection from the floor and 4 walls and the ceiling, and they all come at different times into the microphone. That's what really is the kiss of death for small room recording. So yeah, I'm with you. The smaller the room, and that is pretty small for a quote live room, I think the deader it should be.
I really have heard a whole lot of people like, you really want that that liveliness in a room, and I've found that I don't really miss it one bit. I thought I would, but I don't.
Yeah, well, I have 2 reverb presets that I put on buses on just about every project. One I call reverb, one I call ambience. And the reverb is sort of like a hall or plate kind of a reverb. These are plugins that come with Sonar that I use. And the other one I call ambience, and it's set for a small room, and it gives you that sound of being right there in the room, the kind of sound you get when there's a reflection off a floor, and with a little bit of ambience, but it's not hollow and phasey sounding. It's a good ambience, and you mix that in way down, like -15 to -20. I mean, just barely in there, and you mute it on and off, and you can really hear, wow, that adds a nice presence, a nice life. And in my opinion, that's a much better way to go if you have a room like that. My own home studio is a one-room studio. It's all in one room, and it's 33 feet by 18 feet, and it's got a 12-foot ceiling at the peak, so I have much more flexibility. I don't need to make it dead. But if you're recording in a bedroom, yeah, you really need it dead.
I agree. Okay, now we're taking the gloves off here. This is from the forum. This is the home run question, I guess. This is from Stan Halen. He says, "What distinguishes Real Trap products from the competition? What went into the?" Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Start again.
All right. What distinguishes Real Trap's products from their competition, and what went into R&D for their products, and how will they help the studio better than other solutions?
Well, that's a good question. I saw that one today. Of course, I'm used to that. It's not like I had to prepare an answer. I would say there are 2 things that distinguish Real Traps from other companies. First and foremost is we're real experts. We really know this stuff. We know how this stuff works at the deepest level. And I've done personally, and with my partner also, an awful lot of measuring. We've measured so many rooms. We've treated thousands and thousands of rooms. Obviously, we haven't visited every customer in person. We have people all around the world. But I've done a huge amount of research and a lot of experimenting. And I can just look at a picture of a room and say, here's what you need and here's where it goes. No experimenting needed. And I can just nail it. A lot of times people say, well, do I need to measure my room? I say, well, that's always useful. But no, I'll just look at it and I'll tell you exactly what you need. The other is our products, the fit and finish is better. And this is not to diss competitors. Now, there are foam products that are fraudulent that not only aren't as good as rigid fiberglass that we use, but some of them, two companies in particular, they're actually the same company under two names, are actually fraudulent. And they have bogus data, but most acoustic products do work, and they work well. I think that ours work a little better, and certainly the fit and finish is important. You know, you could have a Behringer mixer that has a couple of preamps that are going to be perfectly fine, not going to be the limiting factor in your project, and you could pay $100 for that. Or you could get a really nice mixer, really nice preamps for $1,500. That might be more reliable. It may last longer. It may look nicer. And just be more rugged and more attractive, and the knobs feel better. So there's that aspect. All of our products are very flexible in how they're mounted. We include all the mounting hardware, and they can be put on stands. They can be mounted on poles in venues. There's a lot of options, and our tech support and advice is second to none, including after the fact support. Even though I'm kind of out of the day-to-day operation of the business, with the phone, our 800 number gets sent to my house over the weekends, specifically so that I can help people if they have a problem on a Saturday, because people get things during the week, but they work, and now they're going to put all their traps in on a Saturday, and I make a point of being available, and I don't even think it says it on our website, but the phone comes here so people won't get a recording. If I can help somebody, then I'm happy to do that. So I think that attitude has a lot to do with it, but the products also are better than the run-of-the-mill. Most products are just most of the what I call knockoffs of our stuff, because we really were the first with this type of treatment back in the early 2000s, 2002. But most of the knockoff products are made with rock wool or mineral wool, which is an inferior product. It absorbs well, but it's not as nice as the rigid fiberglass we use. We use genuine Owens Corning rigid fiberglass, mostly 705. Some products are 703, where that's the better choice. The rock wool crumbles over time, and it tends to sag if you have traps in the ceiling, and where the rigid fiberglass doesn't do that. Our products are in a metal frame. They're very sturdy. They're very attractive, and and also, as I mentioned earlier, we have a limp mass plastic membrane behind the front fabric. We actually build our panels two ways: what we call standard, which is for corner base trapping away from reflection points, and what we call the HF for high frequency type, that absorbs high frequencies as well as low frequencies. A little less at the low end, but absorbs fully at mid and high frequencies. But even the HF type also has a membrane. It's just on the rear, so it's really the same product. We just put it into the frame in reverse order, and that is really unique to acoustic treatment companies. We invented that, and we did a lot of R&D. When we first started Real Traps, my partner Doug Ferrara and I, in 2002, we conceived it and kind of, I guess, opened our doors in 2003. We were using a 705 FRK rigid fiberglass, and that FRK is a type of brown. It's brown paper. It's the kind of paper that they use on grocery bags, and it's bonded to the rigid fiberglass because that absorbs a whole lot more bass than plain rigid fiberglass. And within about a year, we did some experimenting, a lot of experimenting over a number of weeks with different weights of plastic, different densities, different amounts, and settled on the material that we use now. So there is a fair amount of R&D. It's not as much as to design, a preamp maybe. Electronic gear is probably more complicated, but still, it's not. It's not rocket science, but it's not stupid either.
So you've put less R&D into this than maybe the space shuttle?
I would think just a little bit.
And I want to point out too that I would say your main competitor which still has, I would say, Cloud Trustworthy. I bought some of their stuff a little while ago, and it's okay, but I opened the box. It was kind of like that feeling like I was getting a Hyundai and not a Lexus. And I immediately kind of felt like it wasn't into the world. I'm not the kind of guy that really cares about aesthetics much. I'm pretty much just a real T-shirt, jeans, just who cares kind of guy. But there was a certain feeling of maybe I should have spent a little extra money on this.
Yeah. Well, I know who you're talking about, and they make fine stuff, and they're not idiots, but clearly, we're the real experts. And again, there's there's certainly a market for Behringer, and there's a market for Avalon, and everything in between. And that's the same with acoustics. And people that are on a budget should absolutely buy from, somebody that sells, cheaper stuff than us, or they should do it themselves. And I'm happy to help people with both. I would much rather somebody buy from a competitor than not, than to do without. So I don't have an attitude. We have, our customers tend to be better heeled, more high profile. I mean, if you look on our website, on our reviews page, there's a huge list of really famous high-profile customers: Microsoft, Google. It goes on and on. Universities. So our sales are fine, and I don't begrudge. If somebody has $800 and that's all they have, and they have a pretty decent-sized room, make your own or buy from one of our competitors. When you're successful, you'll come back to us and you'll appreciate the difference, and that's fine.
I want to point out that I trust Nile Rodgers more than Microsoft.
Yeah.
In regard to testimonials.
Right. Yeah, and Bob Clearmountain and Bob Katz is one of our customers. I mean, we have some pretty famous people. The biggest studios have purpose-built acoustics, and they don't some of them have small rooms, and we have stuff in a couple of rooms at Avatar Studios in New York.
Awesome.
But their big rooms are purpose-built, and there's acoustic treatment all over the place, but it's all built into the walls. It's behind fabric. It's behind wooden slats and whatever the architect and acoustic designers created, so they don't need our products. But sometimes they'll buy a gobo from us, or for a small room, a B mix room or something.
All right, well said. Moving on. This was from GarageBand, which is not the software. It's one of our. Trying to be nice to him. I usually call him out. Anyway, one of our valued forum members. He says, in large venues, you see large flat panels flown as acoustic treatments. How effective are they? Are they effective? And how can that idea be used for smaller settings?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, all acoustic problems are caused by reflections off the walls, floor, and ceiling. So the best place for absorption is sort of generally near those surfaces. The acoustic goals for a venue and for a bedroom are totally different. You can't even really compare them. But yeah, obviously, hanging panels from the ceiling works, and you'll find that in bedroom-sized spaces as well as big venues, though the goals are different. A large venue doesn't have the comb filtering, they don't have the frequency response problems, they don't have modal ringing, where certain bass notes stick out like a sore thumb and others are completely disappear. That's not the problem in a venue. In a venue, the problem is reverb. It's all about reverb and controlling the reverb and making it so that the reverb is at least more or less consistent over different frequency ranges, and also making sure that a good balance of frequencies gets to all the seats in the house, not just the people in the middle, but the people in the back and the people in the balcony. So the treatment that's good and desired for a venue is just it's just totally unrelated to what you want in a home studio, or even a real professional studio that's bigger, 35 feet by 45 feet. It's still not an auditorium, but yeah, absorption works. Okay,
that works for me. Okay, I think I already know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. This is from Jack Slab 1. He says, if you have a slanted ceiling and you have your monitors pointed towards the high part, how much treatment is necessary behind the desk, the short side of the room?
Okay, well, that's a two-part question. First of all, usually in rooms that are like bonus rooms over a garage or whatever, it's a peak, so it goes up from the front and comes back down in the rear, or it comes up from the left and goes down on the right. Now, some rooms, like Bob Katz, mastering engineer, his room goes up from, I think, 8 or 9 feet in the front to 14 feet in the back, so the back is higher. So it sounds like this person is asking about that, where it's just higher in the back, not
Correct.
Comes up and goes down again. The fact that it goes up really isn't related. The real issue is how far away from you is that wall that's behind you. If the wall is only 5 feet away, because it's a short room front to back, then the reflections coming off that wall are very damaging. They're very strong because the wall is so close behind you, and they're very early because of the total round trip. If it's 5 feet away, those reflections come back after 10 milliseconds, which creates comb filtering and that icky sound. Which is an acoustics technical term. If it's a big room, if it's like 20 feet like your room, or my home studio is 33 feet front to back.
Anyway,
then it's much less important. But still, you always want some kind of absorption on the back wall, at least at base frequencies. And again, the overall treatment strategy, how much ambience is desirable, depends entirely on the room. When you have a bedroom like what we were talking about before, mostly dead. Maybe not totally dead, but mostly dead. When it's a bigger room like mine, it can definitely be much more alive, and the liveness sounds good. So without knowing the dimensions of his room, I can't really be any more specific.
Dang you. No, that was actually perfect.
Well, I saw that thread, and if he wants to answer in the forum and follow up and say, okay, well, here's how big my room is now, what would you say? I'll be happy to answer in the forum. That's what I do every day, all day long.
We're going to hold you to it. All right, moving on. GarageBand had another good question. What are your observations about using clouds above the mix position?
Well, that's absolutely important. That's a reflection point, and again, it depends on how high the ceiling is in a typical 8-foot high bedroom, home kind of room. The cloud actually isn't directly over your head. It's about halfway between you and the speakers. So if you're near field and the speakers are, let's say, 4 feet in front of you, then you find the point halfway between. They're 2 feet in front of you, and directly above that is the center of the acoustic panels. So that's the reflection point. Now you can benefit, again, it depends on how much treatment is needed overall, depends on the size of the room. So you can certainly have, that's the minimum, is you want to hit the reflection points so that sound that comes out of the speaker, because some of it goes up. The goal of speakers is to disperse sound, not to send it in the beam. So that's the whole point of having a cloud generally, is to increase clarity by getting rid of reflections from the speakers off the ceiling back to your ears. Covering a larger area is generally a good idea. So you could have, even in the airfield setup, you could have 3 feet by 6 feet worth of panels, 4 feet by 8 feet. And that's not going to hurt anything and might even be better.
Okay, now we got the home run here. This is probably, well, maybe it's a 90-year question, but I'm going to give you 90 seconds to answer it anyway. And this is from Dahl. I kind of had to shorten his post just a little bit. But here you go. Fast, fast, fast. How should a person treat a brand new room? Go.
You should put bass traps in as many corners as you possibly can. You should put absorbers at the reflection points on the sidewalls and ceiling. Depending on how long the room is front to back, you at least need bass trapping along the back and optionally diffusion along the back wall.
Well, that didn't even take 90 seconds.
Not even. And I do have one more thing I want to address. I don't know if you're going to give me a chance to do that.
No, we're done.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I mean, we're winding down here, are we?
We are winding down, yeah.
Okay. And one thing that I just wanted to get to, because we're talking about, why are people suckered into some of this stuff with, they'll either buy some really expensive piece of gear and they'll swear that it sounds better, even if you can prove scientifically with null tests or measurements that it doesn't sound any better than some lesser piece of gear, or why people will buy a replacement power cord for their hi-fi rig and swear that the sound is clearer and more articulate and less resonant and less boomy. And that is the frailty of perception. And I wrote an article for Tape Op magazine. It was in the last issue, I think. Not the last one, but the one before that.
I loved it, yeah.
And it caused a huge fight over at Mixerman's forum.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, they hate me over there, and they've also banned me on and off. I think I'm allowed to post there now, but I won't because they're just a bunch of morons. In fact, Mixerman himself, Eric Sarafin is his name, and he's one of those people who's really great at turning the knobs. I mean, his credentials are just impeccable, and the list of hits he's done is just amazing, and his stuff sounds great, but he is totally clueless in the science. And I don't usually bash people, and certainly not by name, but this guy really deserves it. So I was just so aggravated because of all of the insulting he has done for me in his forum. He had sticky posts, at the top of every single page is Ethan Weiner's a jerk. Here's why. Click here.
Oh, wow.
He's finally got rid of that because I put up a defense page and showed how, in fact, he was wrong and I'm right, and so he got really offended by that, so he took his stuff down, sort of. Anyways, I wrote this article for Tape Op magazine, and you can edit this to suit. And called Perception, the Final Frontier. And it addresses directly, and it's on my website, ethanweiner.com, on my articles page, under the Audio Magic section, which is a pretty big section, and it's near the top of that section. And I wrote this article, and I got some great praise. Bob Clearmountain wrote a really nice letter to the editor that was printed in the next issue. And And several people told me privately they thought it was really good, including Tape-Op's publisher sent me a really enthusiastic email saying, wow, this is really great stuff. And because it addresses why do people believe this stuff, even though it's so obvious and so easy to prove that it's not true. So I just wanted to get in the plug for that. We don't have time to really go over all the points, but it's a very short article. It was an end rant, an op-ed piece, and it really explains why people think summing boxes improve the sound and just a lot of this kind of stuff. And really, that's probably the most important thing, I think, that I've written in a while, is that article.
I remember reading in that article that you were talking about your memory, and this is in your book too, but how quickly you forget audio memory, whatever that even really means, I guess. But and it was like, what is it, microseconds or milliseconds?
Quarter second, half a second, something like that. Yeah, and you can't listen to everything at the same time. I mean, you focus on the cymbal. You say, whoa, listen to that delicate ping of that cymbal, but you're not listening to the tone of the bass at that point. And if you go back and listen to the bass, you're not listening to the cymbal. So you could hear a recording that you even are pretty familiar with, but you never noticed a particular jangle of a tambourine. You replace your power cord, or put your speakers on cable lifters, or you buy a new sound card, which I guess is more appropriate for the home recording people. And now all of a sudden you notice that because you're listening for things that might have a clarity aspect to them. Say, wow, I never noticed how clear that was. This sound card is so much better. And, it really isn't. You went back to the other one, you'd say, oh, yeah, it's just as clear.
Same thing.
And I'm not saying all gear is the same. I'm really not. Some gear really is better than other gear. I don't want to be misquoted, but generally that's not the weakest link. And most gear, even really cheap stuff, is audibly transparent or very close to transparent these days.
That was another thing in your book that I liked was you were able to give proper context to your thoughts on high-end gear. Because sometimes in forums and, things get shifted and it's easy to label Ethan, he's just the acoustics guy and he's going to use a Sound Blaster card. But you're actually quite realistic about the whole thing. Agreed exactly where I'm at with it. Like there are reasons sometimes in certain situations to get the high-end toys.
Right, yeah, and and I record everything at 16 bits unless I'm doing a remote classical concert, and you really do need to record at 24 bits for that. Well, you don't need to. I've done a bunch when I had with my DAT machine before I had something that could record 24 bits. But better to set so the peaks are never above -15, and then when they play louder than they play during rehearsal, you're not going to get distortion, and you don't have to worry about being down in the noise. But for the most part, having more bits doesn't matter. I mean, I've done a lot of classical recordings, and generally you look at the VU meters. If the recording is, let's say, normalized so that it just peaks at 0, during a quiet part where everything is totally silent, the meters are around -55, -60, just due to room ambience and air handler noise, and you don't hear it as a rushing sound of air. It's just that room tone. And it's like 50 dB down. Well, 16 bits is at -96 dB, I mean,
right.
It's already, the medium is already 30 dB quieter than what you're recording, so recording at 24 bits is just totally pointless other than for that safety net. So I try to just be practical. If you have unlimited disk space and you have a really powerful computer and you don't care how many tracks, if that you can't record enough tracks, do whatever you want. But, I don't argue to those who already have preconceived beliefs. I'm just trying to educate people that actually want to know what matters and what doesn't matter.
It's funny because I was always recording at 24-bit, and when one of these arguments, they always pop up, and they're always huge threads. All right, let's fight about something no one can hear. But I remember tossing one of my reference tracks. It was a metal production, and it was a modern one, and which they're loud as hell. They're totally squashed. So the chances of going down to like the noise floor of 16-bit is almost 0. And I went ahead and took it down to 8-bit, and I was like surprised by how little difference there was even at 8-bit. Like
that's right, yeah.
I mean,
and that's one of the demos in my in my book, which I repeated for my audio engineering AES Audio Myths video. And I took a cello section and started off at 24 bits. Well, actually, it came off a CD, but the plugin started at 24 bits, and I reduced it down to like 2 bits. And until it gets down to like 8 or 9, you don't really hear any difference. And then of course when it gets down to 4 bits, it's pretty terrible. But yeah, people don't have this in perspective. They read so much misinformation over and over and over. And we see this in politics. I mean, if Rush Limbaugh says something every day for 2 years, it becomes, conventional wisdom, whether it's true or not. And so, and I see the same in audio and in magazines. That's why you saw it took a couple of magazines to task without naming them. But, for some really, truly bad advice in my book. And I said, here's what some reader wrote, here's what the magazine answered, and here's what I would have answered.
I like that. Correcting them. All right. Well, this was a pretty incredible interview. I want to thank Ethan for donating his time to this thing. So thanks a ton. I've learned.
Glad to.
I learned a whole much, and I've been following Ethan for a while. I've read all of his stuff, and I was excited when I saw they had a book, and I was even more excited when I got a review copy. That was a jump up and down kind of moment, actually. So we can look for a review on that, and hopefully I'll be as harsh as Ethan is to his critics.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I can take it. I don't think there's really any factual errors in there, but yeah, I can take it, and it'll just make the next edition better. Though, of course, I don't think you're going to find anything, and that $200 check will be in the mail tomorrow.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, once again, thanks a ton, Ian. Appreciate it. All right.
Okay, Brandon, thank you so much. This was great.